Watch this.
It's Friday. You know what that means? It's time to end the week right here on the 208. We will start with this. A polarizing conversation. Transgender athletes in competitive sports. We've heard from Idahoans across the board. Today, we're hearing from Idaho Senator Jim Risch. This week, he honored an Idaho lawmaker for their work on the topic. Valley County Emergency Services are on the ballot. A levy asking for money from people in that community. We dive into how it could change things and the impact it could have. Lots of questions to answer on a Friday. We're going to take up your favorite topic just ahead: ranked choice voting. As a state, Idaho has taken a strong position on transgender women competing in sports. In the year 2020, Governor Little signed a law banning transgender women from competing in women's sports. The law, called the Defending Women's Sports Act, and it opposed Title IX protections for LGBTQ athletes. Advocate Riley Gaines, a former college athlete, joined Governor Little and Representative Barbara Ehart on the Capitol steps to talk about keeping women's sports fair over the summer. And weeks later, Boise State's volleyball team made a decision that drew a lot of attention, forfeiting a match against San Jose State, a team that has a transgender player. A loss for the team record, but advocates have called it a major win in the fight to keep transgender women out of the sport. The issue is no one wants to really get involved with the situation. Boise State, the NCAA, the Mountain West, they have all passed on adding meaningful conversation to the debate, saying, oh, that's somebody else. Well, someone who was willing to talk about it with us, United States Senator Jim Risch. He awarded Representative Ehart this week for her work in advocating for women in sports. Then he talked to us about it. How should transgender athletes be governed in sports? Idaho has decided transgender women should not compete in the women's division. Idaho Senator Jim Risch agrees.
It's just a bridge too far. Not just for Republicans. A lot of my Democrat friends says, look, this is no good.
Senator Risch has followed the conversation while working in Congress. This week, his office awarded Representative Barbara Ehart for her, quote, great work to empower women to play, compete, and win. Ehart has sponsored Idaho's Fairness in Women's Sports Act.
Let the women compete against women, the men compete against men. Like I understand the trans situations out there, but that should not be allowed to really badly hurt women's sports.
Through Title IX in 2023, the Biden administration worked to prevent outright bans on transgender athletes. That effort was paused as the issue became a talking point in national and local politics.
Title IX's been around for half a century. Title IX was created to promote women's sports, give them some equity in women's sports. Everybody I know that's involved in sports says that this thing that they're trying to do, that the Biden administration is trying to do, opening up, letting trans compete in women's sports, is going to be very devastating for women's sports.
Boise State volleyball forfeited their recent match against San Jose State, a team with a transgender player. Boise State has not elaborated on their decision or outright said a transgender player as an opponent meant they would not take the court. Their decision was applauded by Governor Little, among others, like Senator Risch.
The Boise State game, they had to rack up a loss for that. But apparently one other team had done that before it, and there's supposedly 3 more that are going to do that. So if this team stands up and says, well, we're the champion, yeah, you're the champion, because nobody would play because it's not a level playing field.
Planned Parenthood Great Northwest released a statement on the topic of Boise State forfeiting, saying in part, quote, we're deeply disappointed by Boise State University's decision to forfeit a scheduled volleyball game, especially when the reason appears rooted in discriminatory opposition to a San Jose State transgender student athlete. No student should be excluded from sports simply because of who they are, end quote. It does go on to say that Governor Brad Little's support of Boise State's decision adds to a growing pattern of harmful policies. Senator Risch says this is about fairness in sports.
There's a point where you got to stand up to him and say, no, this is a bridge too far. We're not going there, you know. And most people will do that, but people that are in a political position or what have you, I've been disappointed in the NCAA. You know, they should be taking a much stronger role in this. I think they're kind of waiting to see which way the wind is going to blow. The White House and the Biden-Harris administration's on one side of this. I think the vast majority of Americans are on the other side of this. I think it's going to play out to where we're going to win this thing. I mean, it's just, it's wrong.
Circling back to the Boise State volleyball situation, the 4 teams who forfeited against San Jose State, they are scheduled to play them again. For example, Boise State's supposed to play San Jose State again later this year. Will the matchup happen? We don't know. We'll keep you updated as everything plays out. By the way, if you're interested in seeing more of my conversation with Senator Risch, it's up on the KTVB YouTube channel right now. You can also find it at ktvb.com, KTVB Plus, and all KTVB streaming platforms. The Valley County EMS district contracts with 3 fire districts. Those contracts are with McCall, Donnelly, and Cascade, and it's to provide emergency services. On November 5th, they are asking voters to pass a levy that would increase property taxes starting in fiscal year 2026. It's the 3rd time since 2023 that they've asked voters to approve the levy. It's failed twice before, and if passed this time, the levy would take the current rate of $12 per $100,000 of assessable income there and up to about $35 per $100,000, which is about a $23 increase. All that said, Aspen Shumpert caught up with the EMS district today about what's on the ballot and what people should know.
The EMS district says emergency services in Valley County have been underfunded for years.
We're at a tipping point in Valley County with growth and with tourism, and our resource load has been built on the Valley County of 25 years ago.
McCall Fire Chief says that was pre-Tamarack and pre-development. The current rate of $12 per $100,000 of assessed property value was set in 2007 when fire districts were operating on a volunteer EMS system.
If somebody needed an ambulance, there was nobody at a station. People got paged out. They went to the station. They got an ambulance. They responded. We just don't really have those volunteers anymore. Nobody does. It just volunteerism and that commitment to do that is not there.
Since then, a lot has changed. Now the EMS district is operating with full-time positions and continues to see an increase in call volumes.
In the last 12 months, our average firefighter has averaged 60 hours a week, based on the amount of overtime they're covering. So that model is just completely unsustainable.
If passed, this year's levy proposal would take the rate up to just over $35 per $100,000 of assessed property value. It could make it so the fire districts are fully staffed with EMS and eliminate people doing 2 jobs at once.
You're having trouble recruiting and retaining people. And some of that is wages. Some of that is commute. Some of it's accessibility to housing, fair housing, or economical housing, the cost of living in Valley County, all that stuff. So we're working our folks more and more.
Right now, people at the fire districts are trained to be in the fire engine or the ambulance.
If we were to stop doing ambulance transport tomorrow, I could guarantee more consistent and reliable fire protection than we do today.
What are your biggest concerns if this levy doesn't pass?
My biggest concerns if this levy doesn't pass is then now what? And we really don't want to see our friends, families, neighbors, or visitors negatively impacted when we really have a pretty reasonable solution to this growing issue.
If the levy fails, the district could be forced to cut services.
If, and God forbid we do, we have to start scaling back services. Paramedic service would be one of those things. And then we're going to look at who has the most call volume. And we're going to have to probably remove a 24-hour 7 employee or ambulance out of the slower district. And that's most likely Cascade.
Which for a rural community could affect response times.
I really want to see Valley County covered adequately with EMS, fire, and law enforcement resources. Because we're so remote and it takes hours for us to get additional resources from our partners in the Treasure Valley.
This levy will need to pass by a 2/3 supermajority vote, which is 66 and 2/3. Joe, voters can visit the EMS website for more information about this levy.
It's also interesting because Valley County is a spot where so many tourists, they go to that area, and those are not necessarily taxpayers in the area.
Right, and that was actually got brought up in our conversation of why should the people that live there have to pay for the influx of people that come in seasonally.
Yeah, it's a big conversation across Idaho, paying for growth. Aspen Shumpert, appreciate your time. Okay, next on the ballot, ranked choice voting. We know we've talked about it a lot because there's a lot to talk about. It can be very complicated, and we're getting some great questions about it, and please keep sending them our way. Like Mike and Eagle, who asked, if another pro of Prop 1 is eliminating runoff elections. So the answer here is possibly, but there could be a scenario where only 2 candidates advance to the general election, and then they could split the vote down the middle, which could still cause a runoff. But big hypothetical, we'll see. Next up, Chris in Meridian asking, with the ranking in a primary election, is it possible that the top ranking candidates to get onto the general election, they could all be from the same party? And first thing, ranking in the primary election, there is no ranking until the second part of the election. So the general election and the primary would be the same. Proposition 1 proposes an open blanket primary where all candidates are on everyone's ballot, and you can vote for whatever candidate you want regardless of party, but you only vote for one in the primary, and then the top 4 vote getters from the primary, they go to the general election, and then the general election is determined by ranked choice voting. So to answer your question, yes, it is possible that the top 4 in the finals, they could all be from the same party. It also means if there are only 3 candidates in a race during the primary, they could all go on to advance to the general election. And Greg in Boise asked why Prop 1 includes open primaries and ranked choice voting. Aren't those 2 different things? And yeah, Greg, this is a common question. You could argue but the open primaries proponents, they argue that this is under one subject, under elections. And you can watch our in-depth demonstration of ranked choice voting right now on ktvb.com, the KTVB YouTube channel. You can also find arguments from the pro and the con side. We have covered all angles. Take a look. And speaking of ballot items, today is the last day to register to vote online before the November 5th election. You can register to vote at voteidaho.org until midnight tonight. Then early voting will start on October 21st. That'll go till November 1st. Deadline to request an absentee ballot is October 25th. Get those back soon. And coming up this Sunday morning on Viewpoint, we have a deep dive into one of Idaho's fastest growing voting populations, Idaho's Latino voters. Join us at Sunday at 9 a.m. for a special edition of Viewpoint. It's called Idaho's Voto Latino. And I spoke to Secretary of State Phil McGrain about what voters need to know and how to be prepared. Native Spanish speakers have a new way to learn more from official Idaho elections resources.
One of the things I want to highlight is, we've really been pushing voteidaho.gov as a resource for everybody, and we truly mean that. One of the things we added this year for the first time is there is now Spanish pages dedicated for voters who don't speak English on Vote Idaho to get the same resources as everybody else does. We do have a couple of counties that will actually be producing Spanish ballots just based on the makeup of the community for this election, and we wanted to make sure they have all the additional resources. So if you visit voteidaho.gov, up in the upper right-hand corner, you can check out all the Spanish resources as well.
We have a really in-depth show that takes you across Idaho. Again, this will be on Viewpoint. You can catch it Channel 7 right here, 9 a.m. or anytime on the KTVB Plus app. You can download that on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV devices. We will be right back. Containment on the Valley Fire is growing. Kids are working on fire prevention posters, and you can get free firewood to help prevent future wildfires. Our Abby Davis has all that and more in today's 411.
A man is in the hospital after a stabbing in Wendell on Wednesday. Police had to fly the victim to a hospital in Boise. Officers say the suspect is now in custody after they found him in Minidoka County. His bond is set at $500,000. The sheriff's office is asking anyone with information to contact them at 208-934-4422. The Valley Fire burning east of Boise's containment grew to 74% and is staying just under 10,000 acres. Crews are still trying to figure out how it started. To help prevent fires, Meridian Fire hosted a fire prevention poster contest for kindergarten through 5th graders. The winners were celebrated just a half hour ago at Initial Point Gallery. Speaking of fire prevention, you can get free firewood in Cascade. The Cascade Ranger District is offering free personal use fuel wood permits. With the permit, you can gather and cut up to 10 cords of wood consisting of dead snags or downed dead wood. The Ranger District says many popular wood gathering locations have been closed because of wildfires, making it hard for people to get to them. You can pick up a permit starting today at the Cascade Ranger District office. This special offer runs until November 30th or as long as weather conditions allow. Do you believe in ghosts? The Caldwell Public Library is hosting an event called Ghost Stories in the Graveyard tonight. Professional storyteller Jim Cogan will be at the Canyon Hill Cemetery for an evening of spooky stories. The event starts at 7 and all ages are welcome to attend. All you have to do is bring your own chair. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
Are you frustrated about anything? Well, this might sound like the beginning of an insurance commercial, but it's not. We are talking about tomorrow because Saturday is International Moment of Frustration Scream Day. And boy, did people have a lot to scream about back in 1998. John Miller shows us in this week's 208 Redial. For real though, what are you frustrated about? Or maybe on the opposite end of the spectrum, what's a delight in your life? Maybe it has something to do with our show. Let us know. Text us, 208-321-5614. Please include your name and hashtag the 208. We love your comments, feedback, questions, suggestions. We'll get to some of these live at the end of the show.
Just some incredible views from last night as the aurora made itself known. Unfortunately, tonight we have more cloud cover and the potential does look to be lower. So the aurora chances aren't looking so good in our neck of the woods. However, what is looking good is the weekend weather because we have more of those warm temperatures continuing just like the ones we're seeing today. So far we are in the 70s in a lot of those valley spots, closer to 80 degrees over in the Magic Valley. So at least through the next 4 days or so, you can expect the warm temperatures to continue, and it will be a mix of the sun and the clouds at times. A little bit more of that cloud cover tomorrow when we get a break on Sunday. Also in the background of our weather story is the smoke that will continue to linger in some spots. You may see it looking a little bit more smoky this afternoon, but in general for the weekend, we're talking about those temperatures being closer to the 70s and in the 80s in some spots, and it's really similar across the area for those high temperatures. Even the mountains, which are typically cooler, getting closer to these warm 70s and 80s. However, cooler conditions are on the way for us coming next week. So these warm temperatures we're seeing now, those will be gone later next weekend. So you can see more of the warm conditions. This puts us at Wednesday at noon, things looking nice and warm, but you can see more of that cool air starting to work its way through. So feeling a lot more like fall as we get closer to next week. So enjoy the warm temperatures while we have them.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Well, did you know? Tomorrow is International Moment of Frustration Scream Day. Not to be confused with International Screaming Day, that's in April. Tomorrow is about releasing frustration, and people are always talking about taking a moment for yourself. Well, guess what? In 1998, a lot of people took a moment to scream, and John Miller shows us how to do it right in this week's 208 Redial. Warning, this story contains a lot of loud noises.
All we really wanted to do was draw attention to the fact that it's International Frustration Day.
Says here right on page 232.
You're supposed to go out and scream on International Frustration Day, so we provided the forum.
Would you like a shot at it?
This is a little out of character.
Yeah, I know, but that's okay.
You need to scream. I'll scream for her.
It's supposed to make you feel better.
To get real close, maybe 5 inches away.
Okay.
Ready? Rip it.
Some screams were worth shouting about. Others were not.
You aren't going to show this on television.
Oh, of course we are.
Oh, no!
This guy rolled up and gave us a big old look at his tonsils. This girl even got out of her car, ran all the way over.
Man, you just came running up here.
What kind of a scream do you want?
I don't know. What are you good at?
Horror.
Okay, let's have that one. Does it feel better?
Yeah, actually it does.
John Miller, Idaho's News Channel 7.
That was a good one.
If you want to partake in tomorrow's holiday, apparently you just go outside at noon and scream for 30 seconds, or that's what they do in England. If you aren't feeling feisty but still want to release some frustration, maybe exercising, deep breathing, taking a beautiful walk in the nice weather. Hey, we got some viewer comments coming up. We got some good ones just ahead. All right, a lot of comments to get to. Let's get to them. This is on transgender athletes. This person says, it seems as though this is a form of discrimination. These are not just men dressed in women's clothing. They take hormones that reduce muscle mass, etc. That's from Linda. Linda, that's a good point. I know that there are those, though, that question where's the line of testosterone, all that. There is research being done. This person says, I admire the women's volleyball team for their decision not to play the game. Great job on your decision. I just hope that it doesn't backfire on them by San Jose winning the conference because of the teams not being able to play them. Best of luck, Mike in Nampa. There will be some serious implications with the brackets and stuff. We'll find out how this all falls. Regarding transgender in sports, if San Jose has one trans player, then Boise State should have one also. If San Jose has two trans players, then Boise State should also play with two. Balanced and fair, right? That's from Lee. Lee, thanks for the comment. Dale writes, hey, Joe, I say you play the game and take up your problems after it's over. If you win, no problem. If you lose, maybe, just maybe, you weren't that good anyways. Love and peace from Dale. Dale, thanks for your comment here on a Friday. Scott writes in, just let the players decide. If they are concerned about safety or fairness over competing against transgender players, then forfeit as a team. Politicians and the parents should not be involved. Scott really appreciated his opinion that it will not hurt women's sports, but raises the bar. Interesting perspective. Karen in Boise writes, just a question, why should Idaho have to publish the voter information in Spanish when they move to the U.S.? I would not go to another country and expect for them to be information in English. I want to be very clear. There are native Spanish speakers that are American citizens that were born here in the country. It is a federal requirement that if there are a certain threshold of Spanish speakers in an area, they print the ballot in Spanish. We will elaborate on this soon.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.